clue that we are live. Second clue, just double checking that we are heading on over here to YouTube. Oh, good God. Off to a great start already. I'm so glad we're falling back tonight, Adam. I could use that extra hour of sleep because even though I went to bed about 10 o'clock last night, I looked at my phone for the next 2 hours. No wonder my screen time ends up being so high for the week. What do you got going on here? You had a fun Friday night, I hope?
No, nothing. I don't really do anything fun during basketball season. It just consists of researching basketball and then watching basketball.
Sounds fun to me. My wife doesn't think that's fun. So there we are from that standpoint. But we've got a nice 7-gamer tonight. There are 8 games on the slate. So let me go ahead and do an all channel here and let everybody know we are live. Let's see. And then we will get going because we want to get out of here by 11. Since we do have a show at 11 o'clock, the DFS NFL strategy show, final one of the week there. That will be with Sal Vitri and Chris Randone. And then we've got, on the contrary, tonight, we've got Live Before Lock at 6 o'clock with myself and one fast Eddie Fear. And we've got all sorts of content popping in front and behind of the paywall, including the Cash Building Blocks article, which I just dropped in there. We'll talk a little bit about that, where that's been highlighted. Adam will have, is it you or Laffy today for the NBA deep dive?
It's me.
There you go. Adam will have the deep dive article behind the paywall. That was a really good one. Actually, all week I've been enjoying those, so it's good to have a basketball back. And then, of course,
it was better Monday, Wednesday, Friday than Tuesday or Thursday.
Okay,
I will say that.
Yeah, absolutely. You had to leave the riffraff and move to the primetime action there. But we've got some fun here, so let's dive on in. I do have. Let me see, one thing I got to do, but I'll get to that as well. In any event, Adam here. Looking back to last night, we do have a few teams on back-to-back, including the Golden State Warriors, which will be interesting because we have Draymond Green listed as doubtful right now. Willie Cauley-Stein had played his second game back from his injury last night. We'll have to see what his minutes are. I've seen a couple different write-ups, non-DFS write-ups, but out there available for everybody, wink, wink, nod, nod, saying he'll play a ton of minutes. But I don't really see that. I see him needing to ramp up. I think there will be a lot of opportunity for him just because without Steph Curry for 3 months, Draymond Green going to have his minutes monitored / load management. And a few other things. He's one of the more polished guys out there. But do you see any ripple effects here from the Draymond Green injury? And did you look at all at any of the front court action? Just to get us started here while I do a few things behind the scenes.
Okay, so to back up real quick, you said that you read Cauley-Stein's going to play a bunch of minutes. Were these like reputable sources or just people?
Well, it rhymes with Odo Earled. Blurbs,
okay, so
and something else. But I don't buy it.
Well, but there's a difference between. I'm just trying to figure out like what the source was because there's a difference between like WarriorsNation.com or something saying we think he's going to play a bunch of minutes or Roto World having a source that is actually legit.
I don't think they sourced it, but now I do want to check because so the blurb was. No, that maybe it wasn't Roto World because they are saying there he is on a limit. I'll have to go look and see, but it's shocked the hell out of me because I was like, this guy's not going to play unfettered minutes until he gets ready. Yeah. And I assume 20 would be like the cap for the first 5 games or 2 weeks.
Right, and I'm with you on that. I mean, he played 17 minutes yesterday. My assumption is that he's not playing big minutes. I was just saying it was unclear like. If it was like a Warriors beat writer saying he's going to play a ton of minutes and you're just like, I don't think so. I was going to be like, okay, well, I side with the beat writer.
No. It was a fantasy analyst that probably doesn't have skin in the game. But I apologize for besmirching Roto World, but I'm going to go find that now.
Yeah, okay. Now, we're on the same page then. I agree with you. He probably doesn't play a lot. It's probably a bunch of minutes for Eric Pascal, who played 20 minutes last night, but had played 32 before. Spellman only played 5 minutes last night. So Oh, and Marquise Chris got back in the rotation. So, yeah, they have plenty of bodies there. They're not as good as Cauley-Stein, but I don't expect them to play a lot of minutes. Looking at the rest of that Golden State rotation, Jordan Poole got the start as expected, played about 28 to 29 minutes as expected. He's the leading candidate to be the biggest beneficiary as far as minutes go and opportunities. He was the first round pick this year. Then you have, Damian Lee soaking up some minutes off the bench. Alec Burks only played 16 minutes last night, which is a little less than I expected. I think that he'll have an opportunity going forward potentially because he is one of the only capable ball handlers on the team behind Russell. But as of right now, that's not the case.
All right, there we go. That gets bought me the time I needed. So yes, now because I don't like to throw other people under the bus ever because you never know who's writing it and what, but that is just there. Now I'm going to be mad that I said that, but without having it in front of me because I don't like to make crap up. Like certain prominent people that say, well, people have told me, sorry, Mr. President, don't buy it. But anyway, enough about that.
I thought you were talking to Siege.
I have a source is different than people have told me. Hi, CJ. All right. Andre Drummond is an excellent starting point. He is on a back-to-back here. Laid down, wait for it, a monster last night with a 25 and 24, following up his 21 and 22, following up an 18 and 18. So he has just been absolutely phenomenal. 3 of his first 6 games have been of the 2020 variety. Adam, what do you see in his future tonight?
Sorry, who are we on?
Andre Drummond, 2020.
Oh, yeah, okay.
An eye chart joke? Come on, I'm starting early, Adam. I'm starting early.
Yeah, it's another spot where Drummond should do really well. Obviously, just playing huge minutes. Played another 35 plus last night. We're seeing 36, 37 minutes in competitive games at least, and he's doing everything. He averaged 1.46 points per minute without Blake Griffin last year. So far this year, 25.8% usage rate. I have him with a 25.7% expected rebound percentage. The Brooklyn front court isn't as bad as it has been in previous years now that they have DeAndre Jordan in addition to Jarrett Allen. But still, it's Andre Drummond who's one of the best rebounders in basketball, and he is in another good spot that he should do well in.
All right. The other guy who's kind of interesting, and we've talked about it multiple times, we do know that Derrick Rose will be seeing a bit of a minutes cap because the whole goal is to keep him upright and ambulatory. So he's probably going to play about 25 minutes tonight. Had the little former team effect last night, but who cares? He's mostly playing with the second unit there, getting monster usage. We have plenty of other options tonight with the suspensions of Joel Embiid as well as Karl Anthony Towns having ripple effects across their teams as well as their opponents. But how are you feeling about Rose tonight? Anybody else here from Detroit?
Yeah, I think that Rose and Markieff Morris are decent secondary options here. You have Rose coming in at 5,900 on DraftKings, which is towards the top of what I'm comfortable paying for a guy that's playing probably 25, 26 minutes, but he is doing pretty much everything when he's out there. He has a 34.3% usage rate this season, which is easily the highest on the team. He has a 36.2 expected assist percentage. So he still has the opportunities when he's out there to put up big games. And then Markieff Morris, who was questionable yesterday, he played another 31 minutes. He had played about 32 in his previous game. So it's good to see his minutes kind of leveling out where we thought they would be. In earlier games this year, he dealt with injuries, he dealt with foul trouble, and it kept limiting his minutes. But if you looked at the rotations, it seemed like in a normal competitive game, he would get 30 to 32 minutes, and that's what we're seeing now. He's only $4,100 on DraftKings, has a 21.1% usage rate this year. He's never been a fantasy stud, but he's not a bad fantasy per minute guy either. And at that salary, I think there's value.
All right, just getting our stuff up. We do have the ownership runs out, so I'm going to put that into my spreadsheets. Maneuvering along here, got a bunch of different. I had so many tabs up, I just gave up and had to close them all because I've been writing the article. I've got all the the on-off information up, and this morning I was trying to remember. I'm like, wait, how do I do this again if I want somebody as a proxy, but then I need to compare it to last year, but I don't want this year's stats, but I need to add in someone say like Jimmy Butler, who's no longer with the team, so not in the player pools. Had to remember all those little tricks. Think I got it right. Decided
more of an art than a science.
Yes, decided not to quote it too much today, just because I wanted to make sure I was concrete with it, but it got us directionally correct with where we are. But now I've got a whole bunch of tabs open, and I can't find my normal main ones here. But let me close this stuff out. We'll finish up here on Detroit. I'll get that other stuff into my Excel spreadsheet, which is much more easy for me to control. Luke Kennard here at 5K. Tim Frazier potentially getting a little bit of run, and then possibly Langston Galloway coming in off the bench there. Nothing really exciting amongst those players, unless I'm missing anything.
No, I don't think that there's much there. Tim Frazier would be probably the one I'm most likely to get to, just because he's essentially minimum priced. But we saw 17 minutes yesterday. We've been seeing 22 a game. The problem is that it's not like they're running lineups with Frazier and Rose. So you're not even, at least with how the rotations have been, and there's no reason to think that they change, you're not getting even the potential of Tim Frazier playing like 30 minutes, because that would mean that Derrick Rose plays 18, which is really unlikely. So knowing that they're trying to play Rose somewhere in the 24 to 28 minute range, and that Derrick Rose plus Tim Frazier minutes is going to equal 48, and that they're not going to have any minutes together, you can't really give Frazier enough minutes to be a really strong player.
All right, moving to the other side here, we do have the Brooklyn Nets. Now, they did play last night as well. They had that game against Houston, which was quite interesting there. I want to call up this box score, because that was a surprising one to me, that they actually won. And they even came in and were lost by 5 points in the fourth quarter, still won the game by 7. That was something I was not expecting at all. But we did see Taurean Prince put up a phenomenal game, 9 for 17 on the strength of 6 from 10 from 3. He did have 12 rebounds, 27 points. Karis LeVert, a little sketchy there in the beginning, but he came on with a strong game, 25 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. And then off the bench, Adam, your dream man, Garrett Temple. I didn't realize he was still in the league, but there he is with Brooklyn. I had a good chuckle when I saw that box score last night. But and then we had Spencer Dinwiddie, a little bit disappointing here. DeAndre Jordan, got in for his half of the center minutes, although the bulk, technically a third last night. Jared Allen won that battle 2-1 for minutes, but still only had 7 and 10. But they were plus 29 with Allen on the court, minus 19 with DeAndre Jordan on the court. What would you like to infer with anything for the Nets for tonight?
So I think starting with that front court with Allen and Jordan, we saw Allen get back into the starting lineup, and he played 30-plus minutes. That obviously is in the range of outcomes. It just happened. It happened, I think, one time earlier this year too. But one thing to keep in mind is that it's not like that's necessarily the case. In other games that he started, he played 25 minutes, and Jordan played 23. The game against Memphis that went to overtime, he played about 22 minutes. Jordan played 23 and a half. So I still think it's pretty tough to project big minutes for Allen. I have the split right now, assuming he starts at 26 for Allen, 22 for Jordan. It makes them both okay options, but with the other value that you're going to have at the position today, it's not great for either guy, I don't think.
All right, moving along there to the wings, LeVert, Taurean Prince, any chance they come close to replicating their production from last night?
I still like LeVert, and Prince is okay. I mean, he's still relatively inexpensive. I really prefer Prince in pace-up spots, though. Just gives him more rebounding opportunities, more opportunities to knock down open threes, hopefully. This is a pretty big pace-down spot for Brooklyn. Detroit's 20th in pace right now. But Karis LeVert is playing in competitive games. He's normally playing around 30 minutes a night. He is third on the team behind Irving and Dinwiddie in usage rate at 26.5%. He has a 16.8% expected assist percentage. And he's still relatively inexpensive. So not a huge priority play for me, but certainly a secondary option that I think is not overpriced.
All right, and then rounding it back out as we head to the backcourt here, anything intriguing from Brooklyn?
I think Kyrie is the best play on Brooklyn, which obviously isn't surprising, but you probably get around 33 minutes, assuming a competitive game. 34.3% usage rate so far for Kyrie, about a 30% expected assist percentage. Obviously, the offense runs through him. He was a bit disappointing last night given the matchup, but still a quality game, and we know that we can get 50 plus fantasy points out of him pretty easily.
All right, let's continue along here. Reminder, if you have not yet signed up for Yahoo, you can definitely do so by utilizing the Awesemo promo code link and ability to get up to $30 matched with your initial deposit bonus. That would be available in YSRPs or Yahoo Sports Rewards points. I'm going to drop all of that information easily in the chat here. This is the link to the free cash game building block article that is going to be in front of the paywall each day. If you look in the paragraph just above the primetime player section, you will see the instructions, link, and promo code on how to claim your initial deposit bonus there at Yahoo. We will, of course, talk about pricing, and I think we have preliminary ownership projections there. We'll look at them as well. But this is a fun article you can check out. I also have a Fantasy Cruncher tip of the day that I put in each day. This one talks about how you can upload different data elements of your choosing. So in here, you can put in your own randomness. You can create fields, such as here I've added in the Awesemo projections in addition to my consolidated projections. I've got the popularity of the players, etc. So that is something that's very helpful. And then I've also got the link to yesterday's article where I talk about how we utilize Fantasy Cruncher to create game stacks, because there's going to be two of them that we're quite interested in this evening. So let's move along here and get on to the next game. Our next one is going to be Denver at Orlando. Boy, what to do here with Mr. Jokic? Not quite getting it done like we would like, Adam. It's we're back to him being a little tentative with the shooting. First three games, 14, 18, and 15 field goal attempts. Last two, 8 and 6. That is not a trend that is our friend. Let's start off here with the Joker.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning because we see him go through stretches like this every season where it's just like he forgets what he needs to be doing for this team on the floor. He's obviously still a really good player. He still contributes in a variety of ways, but it's like he just kind of loses his assertiveness for stretches during the season. That isn't something that I think you can necessarily project going forward, because generally it just takes someone telling him to stop and to start shooting the ball for him to snap out of it. But it's obviously not a great thing to see. But more so than that, this is just a pretty unappealing game from a fantasy standpoint, and he's not priced down. Both of these teams play pretty slowly. Denver is last in the league in pace. Orlando is second to last in pace. And Orlando's defense has been very good this season. So not surprisingly, this game has a total like it's 2002, with Denver with a 103 team total, Orlando at 99. So not a super appealing fantasy game, even if you don't worry about the way Jokic has been playing.
Yeah, that is very true. This is one that I don't like to cross things off, but this one could be the one thing that we have seen quite a bit of is more or less the distinct first unit, second unit roles here. That's helpful. It's another thing you may want to consider looking at setting semi-permanent rules in your favorite optimizer. Fantasy Cruncher does allow that. You can, when you create a group, you can click the little bottom save for later days, and then it keeps those in there. So if you want to set something that says, don't play Jokic and Plumlee on the same lineup, don't play, Beasley and Gary Harris on the same lineup, you can do that. And if you've named it appropriately, those are easy to find, and you don't have to recreate them every day. You can just tell it to upload. And even if you just say, hey, upload all my old rules, if you've made them smart like that, they'll just come in empty if those players aren't there on the slate. But you want to be careful that you don't save rules that have conflicting information or game stacks or whatever, because that can cause problems. And return no crunches. And usually when it returns no crunches, the best thing to do is take off all your rules and start from there and figure out what you have done incorrectly. Let's say Will Barton happens to be out tonight. Adam, does that move anybody to the forefront for you? Perhaps Jeremy Grant, I guess.
Well, hang on. First, I want to go back to Jokic real quick because I don't think he's nearly as good a play as Andre Drummond. But I want to point out that Jokic is 10-3 on DraftKings. Drummond is 10-1. We currently have Drummond projected for 30% ownership and Jokic for 3. It's the kind of spot where, again, I think Drummond is just the better play. But Drummond's not beating Jokic 90% of the time. They have the same ceiling. Jokic can go out there and give you 70. So can Drummond. All you have to do is look to last night to keep in mind that when you're playing tournaments, it's more about ceiling than anything. You know, LeBron, for example, LeBron and Luka both, neither one projected as great plays relative to the slate, but we know the ceiling they give you, and at low ownership, there's value there. So if Jokic's ownership stays that low, he is a good tournament play despite the kind of mediocre projection by his standards.
Okay, and that's something that's very, very important to call out. And since this is the strategy show, I'm glad that you did do that because it's all the leverage. So this is what, when you hear people throw around the term leverage, etc., it doesn't always have to be from the same team, from the same game. It's helpful from similar positions, particularly like this where you're playing on Yahoo where you can do 2 centers, or if you're playing on FanDuel where there's 1. It's an easy way to make a realistic move away from the field without dramatically changing the rest of your lineup, and you're still putting in a guy who is an all-star and fringe, I will say fringe MVP type candidate here. If he had a little more consistency, he'd probably be there. But what more can you ask for? It's not like you're playing something silly or stupid or bad, Adam. This is a legitimate way to flip the script on the rest of the field.
Right, and in kind of a really simple way of looking at it, now obviously I play 150 lineups and everything, and that's the best way to play those tournaments, and you can get exposure to all the different guys. But back when I was hand building lineups in these larger field tournaments, basically what I would do is just try and build as good at as close to optimal team as I could, and then try and find 1 or 2 guys in that team that were going to be really popular, but who had someone at the same price point and position who, even though they weren't as good a play, who had identical ceilings. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to point out here with Drummond and Jokic. I think Drummond's the better play. I expect that across my 150 lineups, I'll have more Drummond than Jokic. But this is the kind of spot where if you're someone just playing 3 lineups in one of those massive field tournaments trying to get 100K at first, you don't have anything to lose by taking a shot on Jokic over Drummond and hoping that Jokic just beats Drummond by 20 points, because that'll happen some percentage of the time.
Perfect. Anything else here from Denver before we hit on a few of the Magic options?
Yeah, so to get back to your question about Will Barton, if he's in, then I think he's an okay value, but again, this game's just not really that appealing. Mm-hmm. If he's out, there was some confusion in Slack yesterday, I think, about how that Denver rotation actually went, because you had some foul trouble to Paul Millsap, and then you also had the blowout at the end of that game. If Barton's out, you got Torrey Craig starting, and then Michael Porter Jr. was his direct backup. You got 21 minutes from Porter, but that includes the blowout run. In the first half, Porter played about 8.5 minutes, so I think that the best projection would be Porter getting somewhere around 16 to 18 minutes. But Jeremy Grant played a bunch of minutes because, for one, he played well when he came in for Millsap, and then he also picked up a couple of extra minutes when Millsap picked up his 3rd foul in the second quarter. Grant still was just backing up Millsap, though. So even if Barton's out, you don't want to give Grant a bunch of extra minutes unless you're taking them away from Millsap. If you're projecting Grant for 26 minutes, Millsap should have 22. It shouldn't be Millsap 28, Grant 26, or something like that. The beneficiaries we saw from Barton being out were Craig getting the start, Porter joining the rotation, and then Malik Beasley. Actually, Torrey Craig picked up a 2nd foul in the second quarter, and Malik Beasley subbed in for him to close the half. My guess is that would have been Porter, except he had subbed out of the game not that long ago, and they're probably not trying to give him a million minutes. But we also saw Beasley. It appears to be that he was going to close that game out too over Torrey Craig. So I think the beneficiaries would be Beasley, Craig, and Porter, but none of them enough to become great plays.
All right, and I just dropped that in the YouTube link. That's the link to popcornmachine.net. This is a free game flow box score site, and this is what Adam, Lofty, Josh, myself, all take a look at. Adam and Lofty are crawling through these, and Josh constantly. This is how they help determine their minutes projections. They can see who is replacing whom directly, consistently with what the other team is doing. If the other team's going big, what happens? Do certain teams match it? This is where you can maybe, and this isn't the best example, but maybe infer, hey, here's how we might see Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan respond to what different teams are doing, etc. And then if you really move on to that super advanced level and you want to take on, video game, the boss of the level, then go look at New York, the Knicks. And try to figure out what they're going to do. But this is something that's very, very helpful. It's a little confusing at first to look at. But now I look at these and I'm like, gosh, I wish they had this, and then right next to it, the regular box score. Because the regular box, I'm so used to reading those after 40 years of looking at them. It's a little easier. But you can see the important things. You see minutes, points. And in this one, you see, I forget what they call it. Well, they do have definitions in here. I forget what HV is, but that's where you can see it's kind of like they combined assists and blocks and points, or assists and blocks and rebounds. So you can just kind of see what sort of activity is going on there, which is helpful. And then if you hover over the people, you can see what they did during their, they call them stints. You can see what number of stint they are. Sometimes I believe that how they get this information is they probably have some sort of automated game scraper that goes in and pulls from play-by-play and then sets these up. So sometimes it'll miss somebody coming in and out, or if there's a glitch in whatever they're using from that play-by-play game results, it might end up with 4 guys on the court or 6 guys on the court or something, because it doesn't see the spot to take somebody off. But for the most part, these are very, very, very helpful, and this is that next level that is now becoming the baseline of what you need to do for DFS.
Yeah, I think just pay attention to who's subbing in for who. Pay attention also. It's really useful, and you'll see randomly guys get big minutes or a few minutes, and you can just really quickly see if there was foul trouble. If a lot of times you'll see it'll be like, oh, why did this starter come in so late in the fourth quarter? But if you look at the game flow, you'll see that the bench unit was on like a 15-2 run or something. Just stuff like that. It can pretty quickly explain things that, because once you get into the season, you start to have like a baseline in your head of how many minutes someone should play, and when they get away from that, it can make it really quick to see why that happened.
Yeah, or for example, that Jonas Valanciunas, while playing 23 to 24 minutes per game, has yet to play in the fourth quarter. So this is another thing that's kind of helpful, where you're like, yeah, I've got all the PMR, I've got Jonas Valanciunas, he's got another 12 minutes, this is going to be awesome, I'm going to race up these leaderboards, and you're like, he never played. This also helps you identify who is the closing unit and who is going to be in the game in high leverage situations, where you'll see guys like the Clippers, their bench guys like Harkless and Harrell and Lou Williams are all of a sudden closing, and guys like Pat Beverly may not be, who was the starter. You want to look at stuff like that as well, just because if you're thinking games are going to be closer, those are the units that are likely to get more minutes than they would from just a typical average game. All right, there was your little bit of DFS strategy there. Let's move on to the Orlando side here. You kind of hit there a little bit on Vucevic. We've got Evan Fournier. I was joking with you last night that Revenge Fournier had played his first couple years here with Denver, and you were like, oh, I don't remember that. So I wanted to go back and look and see. So I had Googled Evan Fournier, and I typed in ESPN stats so it would take me to the thing. But it was funny because while I was sitting there, it popped up and it said Evan Fournier's nickname is Never Google. And I hear Eddie talk about that all the time, and lots of other people. I didn't realize that was like his official nickname. I thought it was something along the lines of, oh, that's a DFS thing that got some legs or whatever. No, it's actually his nickname. So Fournier is, well, don't Google it, but it brings up a lot of scary pictures. I believe it's a medical condition. I've never actually Googled it myself because, hey, it says never Google. So I listened to that.
Yeah, it's Basketball Reference official.
Okay, yeah. So there we are. But I was surprised. I thought it was like one of the little dorky things that the
Yeah, I thought
DFS
so too.
world had. Yeah, pretty funny. In any event, he's been picking up some more minutes. Actually, been solid. But this seems like a situation here where nobody's really going to stand out. Nobody's really in a fantastic price spot, and they have similar minutes. I guess constraints because everybody's pretty much healthy at this point. Is there anything that pops out from the Magic for you?
Not really. The only things I would point out are more 150 lineup type plays. $3,600, sorry, $3,600 Terrence Ross, $3,700 Markel Fultz. Neither of them are going to be consistent players, but we know that Terrence Ross is capable of just going nuts off the bench. We saw a bunch of shots for him last night. I think he took 15 in 20 minutes last night. He just only made a few of them. But he's certainly capable of doing that. Markel Fultz played 19 minutes last night, but we've seen other games where he plays 24, 25 if he's playing well. They're both guys that they're game flow dependent, and they have a very wide range of outcomes, but that's something that I like in my $3,700 players because most players at that price point don't really have that top end range of outcomes that Fultz and Ross do.
All right. Hey, and what do they have in common? Both from the University of Washington. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
All right, on to our next game. Not to fear, there are going to be some games here that are, well, for lack of a better word, tasty, because we have some interesting options coming up here, and that will be something that we focus on a little bit longer. But for those of you that are kind of new to the DFS world, you can definitely check out what we have here available at awesemo.com. We have a lot of stuff in front of the paywall, but we also have some very, very good information behind the paywall. And we've set up something that's kind of neat. It when you go to, let me get there so I can give you the URL. It is awesemo.com, and then I believe it is, type it in, /join, I think, because I'm logged in. So once you get there, it'll pop up and it'll give you the different subscription options we have. And there's also a little questionnaire there that asks you a few things about your playing style, volume of play, etc., and helps size the different subscription levels that we have for you. So if you're somewhat of a recreational player and you may only be able to pop in on weekends, etc., because you got kids and kids sports and events, and we all got to work too. You've got that stuff. Maybe you want a lighter package. So if you just answer a couple questions, you can get the some different things. And the smallest package we have is $3.95 a week. And that will give you some of Alex's rankings and some of his other projection guidance. It's just kind of the quick hit, but it's fun if you're just doing NFL or maybe you're just doing NBA. That'll help you out there. And then also, if you scroll down further, you'll see there's a variety of videos that are an explanation on each of the different tools that we have and premium features that we have. That talks about Slack, talks about the lineup builder, etc. These are just quick, short videos that you can click on. You can see what it's all about. Because what we don't want you to do is jump on in and say, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. So we're telling you everything up front here of what's available. And then additionally, we have generally one free premium item in front of the paywall each day, just so you guys can take a look at it. So this is something that Alex feels very, very strongly. Alex is Awesemo, but that's why he started the site, is he wanted to give everybody kind of a fighting chance, and he knew how long it was taking for him to do all of his research. So his thought was, hey, if I put this information out there, then this is a lot of effort and work that people don't have to do throughout the day. They can quickly come in, get a synopsis of somebody doing all the heavy lifting, like Adam. We can read his article in 25 minutes or 20 minutes, and hey, if you're just looking at the player names, you can do it even faster, but you don't really want to do that. We also have Eddie Fear's NBA player pools, Alex's player pools, etc. that'll help you out there, but it does all the heavy lifting. I mean, Adam and Lofty spent 5 hours writing that article. We consume it in 15, 20 minutes. So that's the things that you don't have to do. So people say, oh, I don't want touts to do my work for me. I'm going to do it myself. Well, we're doing the heavy lifting here. You still have to create your lineups. You still have to log into your account, pick the players, and then go from there. But this is the heavy lifting. I mean, would you really try fly fishing without taking a fly fishing course? Would you really try to golf without perhaps a golf lesson or two? Probably
Absolutely
not. What, you would all the time?
Golf all the time without golf lessons.
There we go. And how good are you?
not as good as I would be with golf lessons.
Okay. And how many times have you thrown your clubs?
Uh, good number of times.
Okay, there we go. See, I've worked with Adam enough. I know his frustration level gets the best of him sometimes. Now, see, we take that down so you don't have to get quite as frustrated. So there we go. All right, on to the next game here. Let me get back to one of my many screens that I have open. We've got, let's see, Toronto at Milwaukee. This one's going to be intriguing. You have Pascal Siakam and Giannis Antetokounmpo setting up as the primary plays here, of course. And the big call out, we'll just start out with Pascal Siakam. He's still small forward for us over there on FanDuel. Adam, how are you feeling about that little quirk?
Yeah, that's his price isn't really moving, and for whatever reason, his position on FanDuel is not changing either. That makes him really valuable there, just because small forward is always a tougher position to fill out, and there's more. Whenever you can roster someone a position up, if you can roster a center, a power forward, if you can roster a power forward at small forward, it's valuable because as guys play closer to the basket, they get more rebounding opportunities. They generally are more efficient, et cetera. So that's a pretty favorable thing to take advantage of. But even on DraftKings, where he's power forward, center eligible, he's a really good play here, I think. You run some risk of him getting in foul trouble because of Giannis attacking, but that's not something that's going to factor in here. You're getting huge minutes from Siakam game in, game out. Leads the team in usage, does basically everything on the floor. It's a nice pace-up spot for Toronto. Milwaukee currently, after yesterday's game, ranks 7th, tied with the Heat and the Pelicans in pace this year. So nice spot all around for Siakam.
Yeah, the other nice thing on FanDuel, he's coming in at just 9% there. So that is another potential leverage spot. Adam, you kind of mentioned it with Jokic and Vooch, but you've also got Antetokounmpo at 30 versus Siakam at 9. Now, a little bit of a discount, well, a significant enough discount there, 2K plus coming in with Siakam, but that's another potential leverage spot where you can utilize the fact that FanDuel has those more rigid position requirements and make a relatively unique lineup with just one or two pivots in key spots there. Branching out from Siakam, oh good God, that reminds me, we've got the Fred Van Elite contest. I'm going to drop that in the chat. That's my pinned tweet. We're bumping it up to 75 people tonight. You've got to join the Awesemo DraftKings League to get access to this. That's where I'm posting these. We're going with 75. Top 15 are paid out. It's just $1. Everything's paid out normally like DraftKings. I have to play Fred Van Elite. You don't have to play him at all. The last two versions of this, I was the only one who played him. I got second in the last one, Adam. So it is possible to do well with Fred VanVleet. But the winner of this contest, if you have an Awesemo avatar, you will get 1 free month of premium access. We've already had 3 people win that of our 5 contests. So definitely check that out. I will drop the link to my pinned tweet in chat. Adam, we have Kyle Lowry. We have Fred VanVleet. We've got OG Anunoby. And we've got 2 teams that have squared off a gazillion times, it feels like, in the last calendar year. What would you like to do with any of our other Raptors? Perhaps, God, and I actually clicked on his name today, and I rarely do that. Sergei Ibaka. Yeesh.
Yeah, so Lowry and VanVleet both still playing huge minutes, I think makes them pretty decent options here. They're not super cheap, but they're cheap enough where, given the minutes that they're playing in competitive games, you can certainly get there. Ibaka is interesting because I'm looking back at their last game now. But yeah, so once again, since Patrick McCaw joined the rotation, we've stopped seeing Ibaka playing alongside Gasol, which is obviously an issue because more often than not, you're going to get 26 and 22 minutes from those two. So it was different earlier in the season where Ibaka was playing time alongside of him. But now that they've added another wing guy, it seems like Ibaka's gone back to that backup center role that Nick Nurse preferred last season as well. So it makes it really tough to trust him, especially 5,700 on DraftKings. Gasol is 4,900, but pretty difficult to get to either guy, I think.
All right. I have seen Gasol hit a ton of waiver wires in my season-long leagues, which is absolutely appropriate. He is not getting the minutes at this point. That could change, but at this point, he is dead weight on rosters in all fantasy formats. Anything else here from the Raptors side of things before we look at the Bucks?
No, I don't think so. It's Siakam's the priority, and then you get some, Lowry and Van Vliet as secondary guys for me.
All right, over here on the Bucks, we saw George Hill on George Hill Chalk Day do relatively well. Everything just went his way. His shot was falling. He picked up some extra hustle helper stats. Played like 2 minutes more than what we were kind of projecting, and he hit. That's fine. Then his next game, yeah, he went back to not being great and being just waiver fodder. It's not the right word. Cannon fodder. A waste of a roster slot, shall we say. I'm not really a fan of his in any particular time here. I think I think Wesley Matthews has a little bit of skill set overlap with him, and even with Malcolm Brogdon out of the way, I don't see a lot of good stuff for George Hill. He is someone we will definitely look to on abbreviated slates, turbo slates, anything that's 4 games or less. But when we have 7 games tonight and a bunch of other value plays, I think he's kind of fool's gold at this point. Not really a fan of either of the Lopez brothers. So for me, it's kind of Giannis, Chris Middleton, and then, who am I missing? I don't really like Bledsoe, but at 5,900 on DK, he is the exact same price as Jeff Teague and could easily be a pivot from a very popular play to Bledsoe, and he's perfectly fine in tournaments. Is there more than Giannis, Middleton, and Bledsoe? And if not, just hit the top guys here.
Is there more? No, I don't think so. But to go back to Bledsoe, I think in tournaments he's really, really interesting. It's something that Alex and I talked about on the deeper dive yesterday. We haven't seen any big minute games from Bledsoe so far. Well, he played 33 against Miami. I think that game went to overtime. But other than that, 16, 26, 28, 27 minutes. But I still think that there's upside for more. Like, if you told me Bledsoe went the entire season only playing like 28 minutes, I would not believe you. The game he played 16 minutes, he was in foul trouble. We've seen games where George Hill plays really well off the bench, but Milwaukee also is in a lot of blowouts. And if you just go back and look at last night, Bledsoe played 27 minutes, but he subbed out of the game with 5.5 minutes to go because the Bucks were up by like 30 something points. So if you assume that he's going to close that game, that puts him at like 32 minutes. And his rates this year are favorable. I don't have his usage rate in front of me right now, but I know he's averaging 16.6 potential assists per 36 minutes. He's averaging 12 potential assists in 26.1 minutes per game. That's a really, really good amount of potential assists for him. He's got the ball a lot, and we know that he'll score as well. So I think that he's someone that I'm just going to be rostering at low ownership in tournaments until we finally get that breakout game. He was only 1% on last night. We have him projected for 1% again tonight. And, the floor is relatively low because there's a lot of paths to him not playing big minutes. But I think that if you actually get a competitive game from Milwaukee where he's not in foul trouble, that you can get, 31, 32 minutes from Bledsoe. And at low ownership and at that price tag, that's really appealing.
All right. Let me see here. I'm just seeing if I can find who the special guest is here for On the Contrary. Gotta go find that. In any event, just a reminder, we got a bunch of shows coming up after us. Promptly at 11 o'clock, we do have the final DFS NFL strategy show of the week. That is going to be Chris Randone and Sal Vitri. Then at 1 o'clock, you are going to get On the Contrary. That will be Chris Baggs, Alex Osmo Baker, and then a special guest. We've been bringing in different fantasy football luminaries each week to fill in that third chair, and we will have another good one today. And that is going to be at 1 o'clock. Those will be, of course, turned. Those will be converted. We're going to use the word converted into podcasts, so you can definitely listen to those. And then we should have, probably around 4 o'clock, we're going to have an NHL strategy show. And then at 6 o'clock, Live Before Lock with myself and one Fast Eddie Fear. So we have a gazillion other shows following us after this one. We've got a bunch of other free content out there. I'd already dropped in the Cash Game Building Blocks article. You do have a game-by-game breakdown for NFL from Adam Pfeiffer. A little bit later today, I will be putting in the Yahoo specific for the $250,000 baller NFL article. That one has been pretty good. Just saying, I made 3 different lineups in that flagship tournament with my picks last week. All 3 cashed. Very, very nice. The week before, all 5 lineups did not cash because 4 of them had David Johnson. And that was the game where he played 2 snaps and felt a little sore. So we had 3 touchdowns from Mr. Chase Edmonds. But his pact with the devil ran out, and he's hurt now this week as well. So we saw Kenyon Drake in there. Adam, you going to be dabbling with the old NFL on Yahoo this weekend?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, look at that. Adam has become quite fond of Yahoo, his home away from home, now that they do have CSV upload and edit capabilities. If you go to your edit lineup page and you scroll down to the very, very bottom in the frame right in the middle, it'll say, I think it's something like edit CSV or something like that. Very tiny 8-point font. That's the hyperlink you want to click on to edit your CSV. So if you're in a mad scramble, just remember, edit lineups, very bottom middle of the frame that you can see, and that'll get you there. Because
just remember, if you're playing multiple tournaments, remember to leave yourself enough time to edit all the tournaments, because you have to do it. It still doesn't take long, but you just have to do it multiple times.
Okay, good call out there. But hey, a little bit better than doing the hand building across.
Yeah,
the board.
I got burned last week because I couldn't find like my last tournament amongst all my lineups to edit, and so I had a nice $2,500 dead lineup in there.
Sorry to hear that.
But learn from that.
Yes. All right. Well, Adam paid the rake for you, and the rake's only 10 to 12%. And sometimes people will be paying it for you. And that flagship contest has not yet filled this on the season. So check that out. And then if you get in there relatively early for NFL anyway in the week, and about every other day they do run NBA management fee free tournaments. Now, these aren't quite as large as they were when they were using them as a marketing tool, but they still do exist, and you can check them out. The other fun thing over there is their Thursday through Monday. I'm going to give this one away. Their Thursday through Monday contests tend to overlay. This week, on average, there was, in the ones I chose to enter, there was 17% empty, so 83% full. So that is, I have to battle less people, and that's something that I think is worthwhile for me. I just put in my lineup that didn't include anybody from the Thursday night game, jumped in the contests that I wanted to, and a lot of these weren't the big contests. I'm in one, I think it's a $25 contest, 43 of the 62 spots filled. So I'm playing 2/3 of the field. That's what you want to do. That's going to be a better advantage than any information that we can be giving you here. So look for those spots, and that's how you can be profitable. Choose your spots. Yes, I won't have a 5-figure payout day, but 3 weeks ago I did win. I netted 1,700 over there on Yahoo. So hey, it can happen. All right, Adam. Continuing back to NBA. Back to my little pages here. Our next, anything else there from you want to hit on Giannis in particular, or can we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone knows Giannis is a really good play. If you don't, Giannis is a really good play.
There we are. On to our next game. Kind of fun here. We have 2 teams that are playing much faster. We were laughing about it, but Memphis essentially went from playing a bottom 3 pace over each of the last 5 seasons to this year they're currently playing number 2. Adam, that is a dramatic turnaround. Of course, they have changed their entire roster. It is no longer grit and grind. It is Ja Morant and a bunch of guys that got some money and are getting a bunch of playing time. Those are the ones that showed up. A couple guys didn't show up. Andre Iguodala, that was not unexpected. But Josh Jackson, a little weird that he's not there, because this would be like the perfect team for him, right?
Didn't they send him to the G League?
Oh, did they? Oh, I haven't seen that news. Very nice.
Yeah, that was like during preseason.
Oh, I thought he was. Oh, okay. Well, I'll double check that. In any event, Phoenix, Memphis, 221 over under. 2 teams that don't care about defense, love to play quick. This could be the antidote for the game stacks that we're going to see from Minnesota and Washington, as well as Philadelphia and Portland. Let's start off with Phoenix here. Kelly Oubre, Devin Booker, Ricky Rubio. What do you got for us?
Yeah, it's a pretty nice spot for them. Pace-up spot against Memphis, as you mentioned, playing the second fastest pace. Also not a great defensive team, Devin Booker's usage has been down a bit this season from last year, which isn't entirely surprising when you talk about Kelly Oubre being there and then having a true point guard in Ricky Rubio alongside of him, but still getting plenty of opportunities, still involved enough as far as playmaking goes too, playing big minutes, and most importantly, his salary is just really affordable. And this slate doesn't have quite as much at the top end of guards as some other slates have recently. So Booker, stands out as a good option here. Kelly Oubre is a quality option at the forward position as well. I think that Booker, factoring in price, I would put Booker ahead of Oubre, and ahead of Rubio. But I think all three of those guys look okay. And then Dario Saric is interesting. I think that the rotation we saw from Phoenix in their last game makes me feel really good about Saric, because in previous games we had seen Kaminsky get big minutes and Saric get big minutes, but Aaron Baines had been in some foul trouble and stuff like that. And so while most of Kaminsky's minutes were coming without Baines, it was kind of unclear in games where Baines plays 30 minutes, is Kaminsky going to steal minutes from Saric, or is he just going to be basically the backup center and play like 18 minutes? And we saw in Phoenix's last game that was the case. Saric got 30 to 32 minutes. He played well. Baines got around 30 minutes, and then Kaminsky just came off the bench. So it makes me feel like Saric's minutes are a little bit safer than I thought they might be.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Here's the news. So September 20th, this is just Josh Jackson update for everybody. September 27th, according to Shams Charania of The Athletic, Grizzlies and Josh Jackson have agreed for him not to join the team during training camp and to begin the season in the G League. On the 29th, he officially was assigned to their G League affiliate. The G League season has not yet started. Let me just see. Their first game. Oh, my apologies. Their first game was actually last night. Josh's team did not play, but the G League season did start last night. So we should see some updated information on what's going on with him and then where he should be. But thank you. I thought I had read that note also, but then I just called up and he said no G League stats. I'm like, so he just didn't show up? No, the season hasn't started yet. So there we go. Or it started last night. Okay. I agree with, I do like Oubre. I'm good with Saric. They hooked me up proper in their last game. I went very heavy on the 3 night games and cashed in a big way. That was very lucky, but it happened to work out. Plus, Aaron Baines randomly, dropped a 50 burger, which we don't see very often from him. Looking at the other side here, you've got an intriguing Joe Val. You've got Jaren Jackson Jr., Ja Morant, Dylan Brooks. You got a dinged up Brandon Clark dealing with the sore back, may or may not be in the lineup. A heavily discounted Tyus Jones, but he's just not really getting a lot of minutes. How are you feeling about this completely new look Memphis Grizzlies, save for Triple J?
I like the matchup for them, but the pricing's pretty tight. 6,900 for Jaren Jackson. It's a matchup where he should do well against guys like Saric and Kaminsky in the front court, but it's kind of an expensive price tag relative to some other guys. Ja Morant is 6,800 on DraftKings. He's very good on a per minute basis. He's been productive, but we haven't seen Memphis really looking to give him big minutes. It's hard to project him for more than 30. Valanciunas is, I think, my favorite play from Memphis. He got up to 23 minutes last game. We've been seeing him add an extra 2 to 3 minutes per game. If he were to get around 25 minutes at 6,500 on DraftKings against this front court, I think that he's got a pretty good shot at a 35 to 40 point game.
All right. Would you do any, and I know the way you build your lineups is slightly different, or well, let me rephrase that, is way more sophisticated than the rest of us. Would you do anything for the more common man to limit the amount of any of these Memphis players, or set any rules or restrictions on these guys?
I probably won't, just because I don't think I'll have that many Memphis guys per team. But if you were just kind of looking for rules to set here, I think that Brandon Clark's minutes have been pretty negatively correlated with Jonas Valanciunas's, just the way the rotations run. So I probably wouldn't want Clark and Valanciunas to line up together. Kyle Anderson and Jaren Jackson have not overlapped a ton, so I probably wouldn't want them together. But overall, it's and obviously Tyus Jones and Ja Morant you don't want together.
All right, that is fair enough. Now we get to the really good games. Our last three here are going to have a lot of moving parts. We have 30 minutes before we got to be out of here, so we will make sure that we cover these appropriately. Minnesota becomes intriguing because we do not have Karl Anthony Towns. That is going to put darn near everybody in their starting lineup as wildly popular plays. What you also do not want to lose sight of is the fact that Washington is going to counter with some decent options there in Bradley Beal, who is rather spendy today, as well as Thomas Bryant, who does have power forward eligibility on DraftKings. His price is ticked up as well. Those guys are not near, or the Washington side, not nearly as popular as Minnesota. We've got Charlotte and Golden State. Golden State's going to be a riddle with their minutes that we'll get into. And then the nightcap game, the lone 10 o'clock game, we have Philadelphia at Portland. And that one is Philadelphia is going to be without Joel Embiid because he and Karl Anthony Towns had their little kerfuffle there and are each sitting out 2 games. There's going to be some ripple effect there with Philadelphia, but again, there also is some ripple effect with what's going to happen with Portland. So don't lose sight of the opposition in these games. Adam, let's start out here with Minnesota. No Karl Anthony Towns. Do you feel that any of the Timberwolves chalk is bad chalk at this time? And that would be Wiggins. Anthony Tolliver is in the mix. You've got, Anthony Tolliver's Portland. You've got he used to play for Minnesota. You've got Wiggins, Robert Covington, Jeff Teague, and I'm missing one other guy. Let me call that roster up.
Trevion Graham.
Thank you, Trevion Graham. How do you feel about that crew? Oh, and Noah Vonleh.
Yeah. I don't think it's bad chalk. I think that it's a good matchup against the Wizards. And these guys kind of have to be more productive without Towns because not only are you taking away your highest usage guy, but you're taking away a high rebound guy and the high assist guy. So more assists for Teague. Maybe Wiggins tries to do something other than score. Not that he'll probably be good at it, but maybe. And then Covington, even more rebounds for him. Vonleh is really interesting because not only should he get the minutes, but he actually is capable of doing multiple things on the floor. We saw it with his time with the Knicks last year. He's decent as a facilitator. Not that would be his main role here, but he can do it. He can rebound. He can score a little bit. And again, it's a favorable matchup against the Wizards. So Vonleh, I think, is a really strong play despite high ownership. Jeff Teague, his usage has skyrocketed over, if you go back to last season and you look, even if you run the numbers with Andrew Wiggins on the floor, since the start of the 2017 season without any of Towns, Butler, or Rose. Teague's up around a 28% usage rate. Last year, he played 114 minutes alongside Wiggins, 22.3% usage, 40.5% assist percentage without Rose, Butler, or Towns on the floor. Wiggins had a 25.1% usage rate. They both averaged 1.1 fantasy points per minute, so it's a nice bump for both of those guys. And then Robert Covington already seeing more rebounding opportunities this year. That's not going to change, and it's a poor rebounding team for Washington. So I think the entire starting lineup, probably with the exception of Trevion Graham, is in really good spots.
Yeah, Teague was the one guy that really stands out for me. Currently 19% on DK, 31% on FanDuel. He is 59 on DK, 57 on FanDuel. I wrote that price down on Yahoo, so let me correct that. But he's probably my favorite of all of these guys. Robert Covington comes in second for me, particularly on DraftKings. If you were going to rank these guys here, let's just for consistency utilize the DK pricing, Adam, since I assume you have that up. How would you rank the Minnesota guys?
Teague, whoever. So Jordan Bell is also in the mix here. He's only 3,600 on DraftKings. He actually subbed in for Towns directly when Towns was ejected. My guess is that Vonleh gets the start, but it wouldn't be shocking if it's Bell. Either way, I think that you're probably getting like 20 minutes, at least 20 minutes from Bell. Like if Bell comes off the bench, you're probably getting like 20. If he starts, maybe you get more. But he's in there too as a value option. But I would say that among the among the guys other than Vonleh and Bell, Teague number 1, Wiggins number 2, Covington number 3.
All right, and then over on Yahoo, I just want to point out Jeff Teague 19 there, not nearly as good of a deal, especially since we've got a lot of guys at $10 even. So please do keep that in mind. One guy that is 11 on Yahoo, Shabazz Napier, Adam. Does he really have more than 25 fantasy point upside since he's almost entirely scoring based?
I think he scored 40 like 3 games ago, so I would say yeah, but not the problem is that he's Teague's backup. You're not seeing a lot of minutes alongside each other, so it limits him. He's good, but it's just kind of a lack of opportunity right now. One other thing to mention from that last game, there was a lot going on in that game, but Jake Layman started the second half ahead of Trevion Graham, which makes sense, and it wouldn't be surprising at all to see that going forward. If you're going to get if Layman starts and he's going to play 26, 28 minutes at a near minimum price tag against the Wizards, that's not a bad spot either.
All right, we do have, let's see, so Shabazz 3 games ago in Charlotte in 21 minutes, 5.6 boards, 9 assists. In the other 3 games, he has 10 total assists. Got a steal, got his only 2 blocks of the season, 33 fantasy points there. So, yes, it is possible, but probably not probable. Minimum price, though, and he's going to be on those shorter slates, so definitely someone, I guess, that we would want to have in our consideration. Anything else here from Minnesota before we open it up with your Washington Wizards?
No, I think that it kind of is just a spot where you can play a lot of, you can play pretty much everyone. Like, I wouldn't want to play Vonleh and Bell together, but they're both good plays. Covington, Teague, Wiggins are all underpriced given their opportunities without Towns.
All right, looking at the Wizards, wow, they are priced up somewhat here. You looking at Yahoo, you have Rui Hachimura, their rookie first rounder. He is 20. He is 62 on DraftKings. You've got Thomas Bryant, who is 28, center only on Yahoo. He is center and power forward, 72 on DK, and then of course man, myth, and legend Bradley Beal, 41, which is incredibly nice over there on Yahoo. He is 97, so rather priced up there on DraftKings. Let's focus on DraftKings first here. Is there anybody outside of Beal, Thomas, and Hachimura? Meaning, do Isaiah Thomas at 4,800 and Davis Bertans at 4,100 crack the list here for you?
Not as priorities, just because there's so much value in other spots here. But Isaiah Thomas, it's worth pointing out that before last game, he said that he was on a 20 minutes limit, and then he played about 24 minutes. So that obviously isn't something that Scott Brooks really stuck to, and I don't expect him to go backwards as far as playing time goes. So getting 24, 25 minutes from Thomas is pretty appealing at his price tag. Through his first 2 games, 27.7% usage percentage for Thomas. He has averaged 17.2 potential assists per 36 minutes, 10.5 per game in 22 minutes per game. So he's been very, very involved when he's on the floor, and that's been good to see. Obviously, when you start to get close to the 5K range, it's still tough to roster guys on minutes limits just because it's hard for them to hit that 40 to 40 plus fantasy point mark. But the opportunities are certainly there for Thomas. I would put him behind all of Beal, Bryant, and Rui, but not a terrible tournament option to have some exposure to.
All right, now let's talk about Beal, Thomas, and Hachimura from a primary lineup standpoint.
Yeah, I think Beal's the one that really stands out. Obviously his price tag has come up a bit, but he's been shooting really poorly this year, which is something that isn't, going to continue long term. He shot better against Houston, obviously, but 46.7% effective field goal percentage so far this season. For comparison, last year he was at, I think it was considerably higher. 54% last season. So still should see some improvement there from Beal. Getting plenty of potential assists as well. 28.7% expected assist percentage, was one of the league leaders in minutes last year. So I still think that in a pretty appealing game against Minnesota, he stands out.
All right. In chat, they're asking about Troy Brown Jr. I do want to point out he made his debut in their last game there against Houston. He excuse me, he was dealing with the calf strain, so it's expected that he's not really going to top 20 minutes for the next few games. The Wizards need 1, bodies into talent. There's definitely going to be a role for him in the rotation. Obviously, no Jeff Green this year, no Tomas Satoransky, no John Wall. So they're really hurting for ball handlers because it's Isaiah Thomas and Ish Smith. So not exciting at all. I just don't think they're going to be pushing Brown any point soon. I'd wait until we see him crack 25 minutes before he even pops on my radar. But it's an intriguing thought. I would give more credence to Davis Bertans tonight than I would Troy Brown if we're looking outside of those main guys. I'm not really interested in Ish Smith at 4,600 on DK. Anything else here for the Wizards? And would this be a game you would consider stacking with 5 players?
I agree entirely on the Brown versus Bertans thing. Brown was subbing in for Isaac Bonga and then basically subbing out for Bradley Beal. So you obviously don't like the minutes chances for guys that are related to Bradley Beal. But I don't expect Brown to be playing a ton of minutes early. I think eventually he'll take minutes from Bonga, but he's unlikely to take minutes from Davis Bertans because they need Bertans shooting with that second unit. We've seen Bertans consistently closing games as well over Bonga. So I think Bertans, around 28 minutes is pretty secure, whereas it's tough to give Brown more than 18 to 20 minutes here. And Bertans he's still cheap and has a clear role as the 3-point shooter on this team. So I would rather roster him.
All right, a couple questions there in chat. Just putting in that they were asking where the Yahoo promo code and stuff is. You got to come in on the link too. Just dropped the link to the Cash Game Building Block article in chat. Right above the primetime player section, you will find the paragraph instructions, etc., on how to get in on Yahoo. A couple people are asking what is better, head-to-heads, 50-50s, or double-ups. So with basketball, it's because it's the most projectable sport. I definitely prefer head-to-heads. I try to pick players of names that I don't recognize. Don't worry if people have badges or not, but if you don't recognize the name, there's a decent chance you're not getting one of the Apex Predators, particularly if you can play on one of the sites that allows you to limit the number of players that play you at each price level, which Yahoo, FantasyDraft, and DraftKings all do. You can post games and then get a nice mix of players. The problem when you play the 50-50s and double-ups is that if you have a 40 percentile lineup, you're going to lose all of them. If you have a 40 percentile lineup, you're probably going to win between 30 and 50% of your head-to-heads. So you're not going to lose everything. That is the biggest problem with 50-50s and double-ups. If you're going to play 50-50s and double-ups, and there are definitely places for them, play the biggest ones you can find that are single entry. If you play the other giant ones that are not single entry, then there are going to be a bunch of the really, really good players that are playing their maximum number of lineups in there. They're going to all run trains and play the same lineup, and they're going to have somewhere between 1.5 and 3% of the entries in that contest. So all it takes is 4 or 5 of them to really move the cash line up higher. It gets very, very difficult. So be careful with what you choose. I prefer head-to-heads, and what I really prefer are 3-mans, because at this point, if you can find one 3-man with somebody that you don't recognize, it's almost like a head-to-head. And frankly, with basketball, the cash line in 50-50s, head-to-heads, and tournaments is all about the same because there's so much good content out there. Any thoughts on head-to-heads, 50-50s, Adam?
Just play tournaments because it's softer fields with higher upside. But if you're insistent on playing cash games for whatever reason, then I prefer head-to-heads.
All right, there we go. Yes, they say I'm insistent on my 3. I am. The 3-mans are a good thing, I tell you. And
3-mans aren't bad. I prefer them in sports like baseball because it kind of ends up being like a head-to-head, but with more upside because people play such similar lineups, but there's so much variance in baseball that being contrarian in those 3-mans can be really profitable. Basketball, it's a little bit different just because there's not as much value in being contrarian in those. But
correct. And you end up with a 2v2 versus one of the guys and a 3v3 versus one of the other guys. So it's not always a lot of variation in those. Right. I just prefer the upside of the payout a little bit better. for those. And then if you still have the ability to play on DraftKings below $5, if you've played less than $1 million in entry fees, you can do that. And same thing on FanDuel, if you have less than, I forget if it's $50,000 or $75,000 in net winnings, not gross winnings, but net winnings, then you can't play below $5. So for those of us that haven't met those milestones, hang out down there in the lower levels. There is very, very good competition down there, but it's not as good as the other ones. And because their contests tend to be smaller, the payout structures are usually better. Try to get into those leagues. It's a much better way to do things. I have reinvented the way I play this game multiple times, and now I'm having a very successful year, but I'm playing mostly in the leagues, not the tournaments, and it's just I prefer the payout structures. So while I won't have a 5-figure night, I've already had 3 or 4 different ones this year where I've won or netted over $1,500. That's nice. I'll take it, and I don't have to redeposit because I'm not losing my ass like a lot of people tend to do. All right, Adam, anything here from the Wizards, or shall we hit our last 2 games in our 12 remaining minutes?
Rui, I think, is still just playing monster minutes. He's looked really good, and he's playing like 36 minutes a night, has a 21.6% usage rate. Hasn't contributed a ton in the way of rebounds or assists, but gets enough where he's still a strong option. And this should be a pretty bad rebounding Minnesota team. Already doesn't have a ton of great rebounders, but now you're missing Cat as well. So I think that behind Beal, it's Beal and then Rui, and then I would say Bryant and Thomas.
All right, Charlotte, Golden State. We do know that Kevon Looney is going to miss a couple more games with his hamstring issue. Draymond Green potentially on a minutes load minute, and he also hurt his finger last night, so he is listed as doubtful at this time. I'm kind of suspecting we may not see Draymond Green, Adam. This will be our second to last game of the night. We'll still have pivots away from Draymond if you're on the late swap, so you can get out of that mess by going to someone such as, I leave enough for Jimmy Butler or someone on the Portland side there. What would you like to do with the understudies that are now thrust into prominent roles here for the Warriors?
Yeah, this team is an absolute mess. But there are some guys that you can go to. Obviously, it starts with D'Angelo Russell, who is going to shoot as much as humanly possible. He took 24 shots last night. Steve Kerr said after the game that he was going to give Russell a lot of leash in the offense, which I think went without saying because he has no other choice. But it's good to know at least that he's not going to just bench Russell for bad shots like he's Kenny Atkinson. So especially in DFS where, percentages don't matter, Russell's going to get there by volume. He's still relatively affordable. It's a nice matchup against Charlotte. So I like going there. Jordan Poole played 28 minutes as the starter. He's still 3,800 on DraftKings. They need a secondary scorer on this team, and I think that he'll be the most likely to take that role. He's still not going to provide peripherals. He's still not going to be a particularly good player, but while he's still close to minimum salary, he's my second favorite guy behind Russell. I think you get a lot of minutes for Eric Pasco with Draymond probably not playing. I think Cauley Stein plays around 20, which makes him still not very useful. Amari Spellman should rejoin the rotation. Marquise Chris got back in the rotation last night. So overall, I think the front court rotation is still going to be a mess for the most part. The guy that I expect to get the most minutes is not a very productive DFS player. So, and his salaries come up. Pascal's 4,600 on DraftKings. I think that there's just better front court options. So outside of Russell, Poole, outside of Russell and Poole, there's not a whole lot I'm interested in here.
All right. On the other side here, get to those filters. You've got Rozier Zeller, whose prices come up, but I think this is a fine matchup for him. PJ Washington has looked pretty solid thus far this season, at least from a fantasy production standpoint, as has Miles Bridges. You got Devontae Graham, again, climbing price point. The one guy whose price is still seemingly stuck in the mud a little bit here, and we have no problem for that because his track record is probably pulling him down. But you've got Dwayne Bacon, who is starting He is playing 25 minutes a night. Unfortunately, doesn't do a lot more than score, and his shot has not been falling. Game 1, 21 attempts. Game 2, 11. Game 3, 15. Game 4, 6. Game 5, 8. That is not the direction we want to see those going for his fantasy production. How do you like any of the Hornets?
So it's a good matchup for them. Golden State plays fast and they don't play defense. You mentioned Cody Zeller, whose salary's come up, but he is playing big minutes. He is getting tons of rebounding opportunities. I think that I would still put him a little bit behind Valanciunas at that price point, but he's okay. The backcourt has been interesting because Rozier hasn't been playing great, but has a 23.6% usage rate for the season and is still playing 34, 35 minutes in competitive games. Devontae Graham has really carved out a nice role in this rotation too, playing alongside Rozier to close games and coming off the bench. So I think you probably get around 30 minutes from Graham. Both of their prices are up enough where they're not, top options on the slate for me, but they are still guys that I think grade out pretty well. I like the call on Dwayne Bacon, though. We've seen him lose minutes to foul trouble in games. We've seen him lose minutes just because Devontae Graham's playing really well and closing games out. And if Bacon's not knocking down shots, then he doesn't really serve a purpose on the floor. But he was their preseason usage leader. And then so far this season, he's only behind Terry Rozier with a 23% usage rate. So I like when guys like that are really cheap, because if Dwayne Bacon is out there making shots, it's not going to be difficult for him to stay on the floor and close over, someone like Miles Bridges or whoever, So I think that there's at least a path to him getting more minutes. And it's really dependent on how he's playing. If he's playing poorly, you're not going to win a tournament with him anyway, so it doesn't matter that he doesn't close. If he's playing well, I think he stays out there, gets you a few more minutes, and is cheap enough where he could be a nice contrarian play in tournaments.
All right, let's get to our last game of the night here. I finally found my Willie Cauley-Stein blurb, Adam. It was because I was dropping him in season-long leagues. This was from August 30th. It says, although Cauley-Stein, although it was anticipated he can make his Warriors debut as part of the starting five, he'll come off the bench as part of the second unit for now. The fifth-year center was already expected to see heavy minutes, could see his role magnified in the short term with Kevon Looney out for the next 4 games.
Did you say August 30th?
No, I may have said that October 30th.
Oh, sorry. I'll say, yeah.
My apologies. So three days ago, they were saying his already heavy minutes would be magnified. No, They won't. I'm sorry, they won't.
Yeah, just ignore that.
Okay, but I wanted to make sure that was not Roto World. It was another thing that started with an RW. Final game of the night, Adam. I'm just going to turn you loose on this one. Joel Embiid out. I have Ben Simmons as one of our best options. We're not going to be alone in that. I'm fine with him from a point per dollar standpoint. I think Tobias Harris, Al Horford, and Josh Richardson all have intrigue at their respective price points. I don't hate Mike Scott as an extreme punt on that 2-game late slate. What would you like to do with our Sixers?
Yeah, it's a really good spot for Ben Simmons. Last season, without either of Butler or Embiid on the floor, he averaged 1.24 DraftKings points per minute. So I think he is one of the better plays on the slate. Josh Richardson's really cheap and should be out there a bunch of minutes. He doesn't do any one thing particularly well, but he contributes across multiple categories. And again, the minutes should be there in what should be a fast-paced game between 2 teams in the top 10 in pace this season. Philadelphia is 4th, Portland is 6th. So should be plenty of possessions here. Al Horford and Tobias Harris are both reasonable options too. Factoring in salary, I have them behind Harris and Horford, but both certainly in play as well.
All right, and then the quick look here on Portland. We do have Anthony Tolliver likely to remain in the starting lineup without Zach Collins. I have written him up there as risky value in the cash building blocks article, excuse me, which is free. And my point is, in his 12 years, he has played for 9 franchises. He has played in 669 games. He has started 94 of them. He is averaging 19 minutes per NBA game with 6.3 points and 3.4 rebounds. Those are not inspiring numbers. There is not much upside for him. There is not really a lot of downside because he's near minimum price, but he is not likely to give you a tournament-winning score. What he could do on those abbreviated later slates is help you facilitate getting in some of those other top plays in your lineup. Just be careful with him. What do you like here from Portland?
So Hassan Whiteside's questionable for this game. He didn't practice yesterday. I still, my guess, and it's a total guess, is that he goes because he banged up his knee in the first half of their last game, and then he came back in and played in the second half. So I'm guessing he just was held out for precautionary reasons yesterday, but that's something to obviously keep a huge eye on since Zach Collins is already out. Scal has been Whiteside's backup. So if Whiteside's out, Scal becomes another really, really good value option. He's always been someone that isn't very good in the NBA, but he can produce on a per minute basis for DFS purposes. So he'd be a good value if Whiteside is out. But assuming that Whiteside's in, probably playing around 26 minutes, I still prefer Joe Val at that price range. You look to Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum in the backcourt. Both, I think, are reasonable options. There's a lot of other guys that I have a little bit ahead of them on this slate. But, again, a fast-paced game, no Joel Embiid rim protection. Horford's still a quality defender at the 5, so it's not like Philadelphia should be as bad defensively this year as they have in the past when Embiid sits. But it doesn't hurt, especially for guys like Lillard and McCollum that drive to the rim a lot. So they're both, good options. I would say Lillard and McCollum are my two favorite plays from Portland.
All right, so that is going to wrap it up for us, dropping the Fred Van Elite information in chat one more time. Go to my pinned tweet, join the Osmo DK League. You will have access to that. It's $1.75 must fill to run. Pays out top 15, just normal payout structures there. The bonus is if you win first and have an Osmo avatar, you will get 30 free days of Osmo premium content. We have given away 3 of those already, so it is a good way to get a bunch of bang for your buck. I am the only one that has to play Fred Van Elite, and I have no problem doing so. So perhaps I am sort of helping pay the rake because his price per dollar, not the best at this point. We do have, at 6 o'clock, we've got Live Before Lock. That will be myself and Fast Eddie Fear. We'll let Fast Eddie do most of the talking, and we'll let him do it quickly because we have 7 games to cover, but that will be on the Awesome YouTube channel. Starting in about 2 minutes, you've got the NFL DFS Strategy Show, final wrap-up for the week. That is Sal Vitri and Chris Randone. 1 o'clock, you're going to get On the Contrary with Chris Baggs, Alex Osmo Baker, and a special guest. And then Deep Dive, Behind the Paywall, written by one Adam Ship, My Money Share. You can also find him on Twitter. Adam is closing in on my follower count. This is going to be fun when you pass me. Who gets to 11,000 first? I'm 300 away, you're 900 away, and you're getting about 10 times the followers per day that I am because I'm getting like 1. But hey, follow Adam. Definitely worthwhile. It's at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS, and it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.